This is a big matchup in my eyes. You've got two teams that are licking their wounds from extremely demoralizing losses in week 10. And I don't think it's a win or go home situation. If Atlanta loses at 6-5, they're probably still in a good spot to win the division. If Denver loses at 5-6, they are still very much alive for a wild card spot. But whichever team does lose this game is going to feel like they are 10 feet below surface after losing the way they lost the previous week, whether it's 3 missed field goals or a blocked field goal, and then following that up with either a second or a third straight loss. So let's get into this preview, starting off with the injury side of things. These are the injury reports from Thursday. Much longer list for the Falcons. A couple of guys, though, back to full participation, like Lorenzo Carter, who was on IR for the last 4 weeks and comes at a good time with a couple of other injuries. Atlanta's defensive line sustained. Kirk Cousins, though, full participant. I 100% fully believe that he will play. So no, we are not going to see Michael Penix on Sunday. I fully expect Kirk Cousins to be ready to roll by Sunday. Drew Dalman also coming back. That's very helpful with an ankle injury, full participant, or getting back to 100%, kind of wrapping up after spending some time on injured reserve. Darnell Mooney popped up on the injury report with an Achilles injury. He was limited. That's definitely something to watch for because this Broncos defense is very, very good. So you need all hands on deck. This is not one of those games where you go, hey, maybe we kind of get by without Mooney. No, you're going to want everyone you can get for this matchup. Lindstrom limited, so that's always a little bit on the concerning end, but he's a vet. He's an Iron Man. He's probably going to get out there. Same goes for Grady, Jarrett. Troy Andersen, this one I'm a little bit nervous about. He re-aggravated that same knee injury he sustained in the first matchup with New Orleans. As for the do not practices, we got 6 guys, and if you don't practice, it's difficult to see your way onto the field. Dee Alford with a hamstring injury. If he can't go, it'll likely be Clark Phillips filling in. Mike Hughes was limited and then turned into did not practice on Thursday. So that's going to be something to watch for, along with Antonio Hamilton. So you've got your 2 starting corners and the backup all not practicing. Could be a long day for A.J. Terrell and Clark Phillips. And then James Smith-Williams did not practice. Don't expect to see him or Taquan Graham this Sunday as well. So a much, much longer list for injured Falcons compared to the Broncos, who only had 6 guys on their injury report, and 4 of them were full participants. The only 2 that were not were defensive end Zach Allen, who is one of the best interior pass rushers in football, but that was a non-injury related rest day for him, so he's likely going to be just fine on Sunday. And then Brandon Jones, their starting safety, who took over from Justin Simmons, who, by the way, is making his return to Denver. He was limited with an abdomen injury. So that's the injury news. It's definitely something to keep an eye on as we get closer and closer to kickoff. Now, for the Falcons offense versus the Broncos defense, this is somewhat reminiscent of a previous Broncos game. When Denver went to Baltimore in Week 9, it was the Broncos' top 5 defense against the top 5 Ravens offense. Oil meets water. Well, the Ravens won 41-10. So we know which side of the football was able to win this matchup. We're going to see it all over again. The number 5 offense in yards per game by Atlanta versus the number 5 defense in yards allowed by Denver. As for the Broncos offense, I don't think the numbers do it justice. First off, these numbers include the first few weeks of the season where they had a rookie quarterback still getting into the swing of things. The last couple of weeks have been much better offensively. Bo Nix has thrown 2 or more touchdown passes in his last 3 home games. So it's not as easy as you might think based on, 22nd in scoring and 24th in yards. This is not a very good offense. No, it's an offense that outkicks its coverage when it comes to the numbers that you see on screen. Before we look at the matchups and the keys to victory and all that good stuff, who you got? Falcons or Broncos? This is going to be a very close matchup. I want to hear from everyone down below in the comment section. Let me know who you think is going to win on Sunday. So the first thing I want you guys to watch for in this game is protecting Kirk Cousins. I mean, this is going to be a focal point for both teams in preparation for this week. For Atlanta, about obviously always protecting your starting quarterback, but especially when you are going up against a Broncos pass rush that ranks second in sacks. I mean, it's always important to protect the quarterback, but this week it's going to have an extra layer of security to it. They lead the AFC in sacks with 35. And how many of you guys watching right now can even name anyone on this Broncos defense after Patrick Surtain? Probably not a whole lot of you, because it's not a defense filled with perennial Pro Bowlers. Von Miller's not there. Bradley Chubb's not there. You know who's there? A 7th-round draft pick, Jonathan Cooper, and a 2nd-round pick, Nick Bonito, leading the charge. It's a cast and crew. I mean, it is a pass rush by committee, and it is working. So, with Cousins having very little mobility, even if they're not able to sack him, we know Cousins is not going to be very good at extending plays and getting out of the pocket and whatnot. It's going to be paramount for this offensive line to make sure Cousins has a good pocket to throw to, because he's not going to bail out his offensive line if they get beat on a play or two by stepping up in the pocket, bailing out of it and rolling on to the right and throwing on the run. That's not Kirk Cousins anymore, and that's perfectly fine because he has a good offensive line and he wins in the pocket. But for Denver, their priority is make sure he does not beat us from the pocket. And with their pass rush, they're probably licking their chops at that. Before we look at the next thing to watch for in this matchup, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are less than 100 subscribers away from reaching 30,000. I really would love to get there before kickoff. So if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you scroll on down and click that subscribe button. Second thing to keep an eye on is the special teams turnaround. If you think the Falcons have it bad after week 10, you should go check in on some Broncos fans, because going 1 for 4 and losing by 3 and essentially single-handedly costing your team the game, is a tough thing to bounce back from for Young Wei Koo, who, like I said, went 1 for 4. But you know what's worse than going 1 for 4 and losing by 3? Losing by 2, because the game-winning kick from 35 yards away was blocked. That's what Broncos country is going through right now, as Will Lutz's game winner to knock off the undefeated rival Chiefs was blocked by Leo Chenal. So both teams had major game-deciding special teams blunders. And it's going to be up to both teams to not only correct their own mistakes, but also go, hey, we made some bad mistakes that cost us the game. But the opposition this week did the same thing. So who's going to spend the time in the lab to go, well, I know it's bad for us right now, but it's worse for them, so let's exploit that. I think special teams can have a major influence and factor in this game. Which side is going to give their team great field position with an excellent return? Who's going to come up with a blocked field goal? Which kicker is going to go perfect on the day? Calling it right now, there's going to be a special teams play that gets made that dictates the outcome of this game. I'm going to plant my flag right now. Come back to this moment Sunday afternoon. Third thing to watch for, the Falcons' firepower. This is a little bit of a lopsided matchup when it comes to skilled position players. The Broncos do not come with a cast and crew of Pro Bowl running backs and receivers like Atlanta does. I mean, look at the playmakers here. It's Bijan Robinson up against Audric Estime, who took over from Javonte Williams, who got benched last week. And then you've got Drake London and Darnell Mooney, the only receiver combo in the NFL to have 600 or more yards each, against Cortland Sutton, who is very good, Josh Reynolds, who has spent the last 4 to 5 weeks on injured reserve with a finger injury. They got surgery, and then got shot when leaving a strip club in the arm and in the back of the head last month. So that's a lot to come back from. And then there's rookie Devon Vele, who's the next best receiver on this Broncos team. And on the other side, Bijan, Allgeier. I mean, the Falcons' second best running back, Tyler Allgeier, would be miles ahead of any running back on this Broncos roster. And then London, Mooney, and Pitts. So if we're doing a fantasy football off, advantage Atlanta across the board. They have better running backs. They have better wide receivers. They have better tight ends. But the Broncos have had this issue for nearly every matchup they've had this year. And they're 5-5. So I don't think they're very interested in hearing about, oh, we don't have any good fantasy football players on your team. They've got one thing that they love, though, and that's Patrick Surtain. He has been locked down. He has not allowed more than 25 yards in coverage since week 1. So with excellent defense and just gritty offense fueled by a very good offensive line in Denver, it might be a little bit of a bar fight between these two teams. You've got high-powered speed in Atlanta, and you've got stout, grueling defense in Denver. These two sides are going to clash, and one's going to come out ahead. Who's going to score the first touchdown in this game? We'll end our preview with this question right here. Scroll on down and let me know who you think is going to score TD number 1. I always love hearing from all of our wonderful, beautiful viewers. While you are giving me that prediction, let me just give a quick shout out to the Dirty Birds Club. I look forward to seeing all of you guys for our watch party on Sunday. Jose Santana, Ken Ballard. I haven't seen Ken in a while. Trey 1222, Jason Lindino, Reese Atkins, Archangel, Angry Liquid, Jeebus H. Christ, Dictator JC, JT, Jordan C. Johnson, Ronan Tyrell, Lord Buddy Bear, and Bentley Lancaster ATL. Thank you guys so much for being such loyal supporters of the channel. And once again, we'll have a watch party, so make sure you come hang out with us during that watch party on Sunday.